I mean, is there anybody reading in positions of authority in Ireland reading this information? And the professor who wrote to me from the United States, Professor Isaacson, the neurologist, like he's one of the top neurologists in the world. He worked on this. He wrote to me going, the expert body in Ireland don't accept this. Like, who the hell are the expert body in Ireland to say that they don't accept the study of the National Academy of Sciences in America? Like, and why aren't we questioning this? Like, we should have them in the dock.
Yes.
No, yes.
So I mentioned about DNA. This is a quote from it. The ability to initiate, promote cancers. Look at this one. A few studies in human populations have suggested that fluoride might be associated with alterations in reproductive hormones, fertility, and Down syndrome.
Lots of ways we need of all these illnesses.
Yes, exactly.
But to have a statement where they say that it's biologically plausible that fluoride exposure could cause Down syndrome is really worrying.
That is scary.
I mentioned about subpopulations, those who might be at risk of it. They found the effects of fluoride can puts at risk like bladder cancer, thyroid, liver, kidneys, pancreas, pineal, brain function, in addition to fluoride's association with nutritional deficiencies and blah blah blah. It goes on. Impairs glucose tolerance. So if you're diabetic, like, what are you doing drinking fluoridated water if it's going to impair insulin production, inhibit it, and impair glucose tolerance? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Here's another very famous doctor. You'd see his products actually in some of the health food stores. He wrote the opening introduction to this. He's living in Scotland now. But it's an interesting one. In a free country, we cannot allow people to put medications into what is one of the most important commodities, or water. Never in history have we been so threatened by so much in terms of our food, air, and water quality. Let's keep them pure. He wrote that 20 odd years ago. It's more important now than ever before. And I actually didn't know who he was until my wife took one of his products out of the shop. So this is the guy you're talking to. I thought, wow, that's interesting. That he knows Dr. Mullenberg. And that's interesting because there's a lady in Israel who contacted me a few weeks ago, who's a doctor in Israel, who told me that he's still alive. He's almost 90 years of age. And I wrote an article and put it on the internet about how he managed to stop water fluoridation in the Netherlands. And there was a phenomenal amount of people looked at it on the internet. And the former senior water services engineer in Israel who brought fluoridation into Israel in 2000 retired from his position last year, and he's taking a high court case action against the Israeli state now to stop it, to put it back, and they're using my evidence in their high court case. And she rang me to tell me this and asked me was it okay, and she said that the article I wrote about Dr. Mullenberg, that she had got a courier to send it to him, and that she'd spoken to him on the phone and how delighted he was that there was somebody in Ireland reading his book and trying to do something about fluoridation.
So you might need to just plug in there.
I'll go through this quick. Colic is another issue with babies. I didn't bring it down, it's supposed to be 6-hour one, but we have the highest level of bottle-fed infants in the world with this, for various reasons. But there are more mothers not breastfeeding in Ireland than anywhere else in the world, and so we have the highest percentage of children being exposed to fluoride from the very moment that they take their first feed, nearly, in the world, and it's pretty shocking. So
does fluoride is less fluoride in breast milk?
About 200 times less. Oh. So a baby will be exposed to about 200 times more by being bottle fed. I'm going to show you the data, right, in case we lose it. This is a map first showing in yellow all the high-risk areas in Ireland that have soft water that's fluoridated. So if you live in any of the yellow areas, you're more at risk, right? They're the cancer maps for Ireland. They actually do include Northern Ireland, but Northern Ireland came out the lowest risk in light green for all cancers. So it's kind of astonishing like that. And a lot of these areas that are light green here in Ireland are non-fluoridated community water schemes. But West Cork comes out the worst overall for about 15 cancers. We're right up there. So this is the difference between disease prevalence in Northern Ireland compared to the Republic of Ireland, right? So it's the percentage increase that we have in the south, and it's average for population. So osteosarcoma, which is a bone cancer, is 35% more prevalent. Pancreatic cancer, 22%. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, 14%. Leukemia, 23% more prevalent. Bladder cancer, 14%. Uterine cancer, 11%. Skin cancer, 18%. Prostate, 29%. And brain cancer, 20%. For all those cancers, where there's like you're talking thousands of people, a higher incidence of the cancer in the south compared to the north. And then when you look at Down syndrome, 83% higher. Now, when I looked into that, I kind of went, well, is it got to do with early termination of pregnancy or screening or whatever? And I found a report that was published by the NHS in the UK where they said, even if you take early screening and early termination into account for infants in the UK, it would only account for a 1% reduction in Down syndrome in England. We're 83% higher than Northern Ireland or the UK. Osteoporosis, 100%. Arthritis, 41%. Rheumatoid arthritis, 60%. Diabetes, 60%. And this is the shocker that I found this week. And that is beyond all the realms of what I would have imagined. 450%. So you're not supposed to get dementia in a population under the age of 65. And we have had an explosion of early onset dementia in the age group 30 to 59 years of age in Ireland, who are the longest exposed to fluoridated water and to aluminium, fluoride and silica fluoride compounds. And nobody is paying any attention to it. Dementia, 23% higher. Depression, 78%. Now, depression is astonishing, right? Because they had a war going on up in Northern Ireland for 40 odd years. Thousands of people got killed. They had worse socioeconomic backgrounds than we had in the south. More unemployment. Every single confounding factor that would add to the fact they should have higher depression should have the statistic the other way around.
Which is we have.
But as we have it. Now we're talking 400,000 people in the south have been diagnosed with depression. 400,000. Epilepsy, 31% higher. Autistic, we're the leaders in the world. We have more autistic kids in Ireland than they have in the United States of America.
Oh my God.
And 75% of the population of Ireland are exposed to fluoridated water, and 65% of the United States. They're just behind us in terms of the prevalence of autism in their population. Sarcoidosis, that's how you pronounce it. Sarcoidosis. It was something I never heard of until I did my review. 250% higher prevalence. Now that's to do with an autoimmune response in terms of, you heard how fluoride, they said it affects your immune system. Well, things like rheumatoid arthritis is to do with the immune system fighting itself. This is the same, and there are others as well. But so, like, to have, like, and so to have a situation, it's gone there on the battery, but that's astonishing.
Sorry, Declan, the government, no, you've handed them this.
They haven't seen this data
They
yet.
haven't seen this yet.
I had some of that data in my report, but now what I've done is I've basically gone into the trouble of looking at all the data for the north, comparing it to the south, and then comparing it to Europe and the world. And that's what I've been working on for the last 2 weeks. the last two that were on that slide were to do with congenital hypothyroidism, 220% higher. Now that's really, really serious, because if you have a mother who has hypothyroidism and she's pregnant, her baby will be born with a lower IQ than a woman who doesn't have hypothyroidism. That's a known fact, right? So you're creating an immediate problem in terms of impacting on the future of the next generation. And then congenital hypothyroidism isn't a case of where the child has it because the mother has it. It's because the child has been exposed, so the thyroid gland isn't developed properly while it's developing in the womb. And what could possibly be causing that? And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that fluoride in drinking water, it crosses the placenta, it has been identified quite clearly in a mother. Very high levels of fluoride in the placenta, if you live in a fluoridated area. So the baby's being exposed to it while their brains are developing or while their bodies are developing. And it's really frightening. It is frightening what's going on. So that's kind of the data that I've been showing to people in the last 48 hours that you've just seen there in terms of the difference. The differences are astronomical. And I've said that very clearly to a number of politicians, senior politicians, like that what we're talking about here is actually one of the greatest catastrophes that has happened in this country ever in terms of in the last 100 years, in terms of its implications, the number of people that have been affected. You're talking about a huge number of people. Cardiovascular disease was the other one that was there. It was like 55 or 35% higher than in the north. But we lead the world in terms, all of the 27, there's only one country in the whole of Euro-Asia, all the ways from here to China, that beats us for cardiovascular disease and respiratory disease mortality, both of them, right? And that's Kazakhstan. And you go, well, we're a developed country in Western Europe. How can we have the same level of mortality kind of as some place like Kazakhstan? Is that our marker now in terms of healthcare, in terms of mortality? But when I went to look into what could be causing the level of mortality in that country, what did I find? I found that 68% of the population of Kazakhstan have been found to have dental fluorosis, which is a chronic overexposure of fluoride. It's shown in their teeth. It's about 40% in Ireland. Little white spots in your teeth, that's dental fluorosis. And 17% of the population of the country have been identified with skeletal fluorosis. And of course, we've never identified one single case of skeletal fluorosis in Ireland because they've never looked.